You know that feeling? You were standing in the grocery aisle staring at two jars of peanut butter. One is a generic brand, and the other is the one you actually like. The price difference is exactly 80 cents. You stand there for a solid 45 seconds, debating the merits of the purchase, doing mental gymnastics to justify saving less than $1. You eventually grab the cheaper one, walking away feeling a tiny surge of responsible pride. You think, I am good with money. But what if I told you that this exact mindset, the obsession with cutting costs at the margins, is actually the reason you aren't wealthy yet? My name is William, and I spend way too much time thinking about the counterintuitive side of money. Contrary to the popular advice of saving on everything, I'm going to argue that spending money on health, education, and buying time actually has an infinite ROI. If you are someone who sacrifices entire weekends to save $30 on household chores, but has never calculated that those 8 hours could generate you $800 if you invested them in a side business, and your life is currently more disorganized than Professor Farnsworth's laboratory after a failed experiment, this is going to completely change your perspective. Here's the thing. Most financial advice is defensive. It's all about playing goalie. Stop buying lattes, cancel Netflix, clip coupons, drive across town to save 4 cents on gas. And sure, spending less than you earn is the first rule of the game. You can't bleed money and expect to survive. But here's what the majority of people don't realize. There is a mathematical floor to how much you can save, but there is no ceiling to how much you can earn. You can only cut your expenses to zero. You can't save more than 100% of your income. However, your ability to increase your value, your skills, and your time efficiency is theoretically infinite. This brings us to what I call the reverse 10% rule. The standard 10% rule says you should save 10% of your income. The reverse 10% rule says you should aggressively identify the areas of your life that generate energy and time and deliberately increase your spending there by 10% or more, even if it feels uncomfortable. Let's look at the math, because the numbers are actually shocking. Let's talk about the concept of buying time, or outsourcing. This is usually where I lose people, because we are conditioned to believe that if you can do something yourself, you should do it yourself. Paying someone to clean your house, mow your lawn, or deliver your groceries feels lazy. It feels like throwing money away. But let's break down the real hourly rate trap. Imagine you earn $50,000 a year. That breaks down to roughly $25 an hour. Now let's say you spend your Saturday spending 4 hours deep cleaning your house. You saved yourself the cost of a cleaning service, which might be around $100. In your head, you saved $100, but financially, you just sold 4 hours of your prime weekend energy for $25 an hour. If you're trying to build a business, learn a high-income skill, or even just recover from burnout so you can crush it at work on Monday, that $25 an hour labor is costing you thousands in lost future opportunity. Wealthy people do not look at the cost of the service, they look at the cost of the time. If you pay $100 to save 4 hours, you are buying your life back for $25 an hour. If you then use those 4 hours to learn a skill like copywriting, coding, or sales, skills that can easily pay $100 or $200 an hour, you have just engaged in arbitrage. You bought time cheap and sold it high. You didn't spend money, you invested it. Now, maybe you're thinking, William, I don't have a side business. I just use that time to watch TV. That is a fair point, but this is where the psychology gets interesting. When you start valuing your time financially, your behavior changes. If you pay $20 for grocery delivery to save an hour of wandering around the store, you suddenly feel a subconscious pressure to make that hour count. You stop doom scrolling and start doing something productive because you literally paid for the privilege of that time. Let's move to the second pillar of the reverse 10% rule, education and access. We hesitate to buy a $20 book or a $200 course, yet we'll drop $50 on a dinner that we'll forget by tomorrow morning. This is insane. Let's look at the ROI of the stock market versus the ROI of a book. The S&P 500 has historically returned about 10% per year. If you invest $20 in the stock market, in a year you have $22. You made $2. Congratulations. Now, take that same $20 and buy a book on negotiation. You spend 5 hours reading it. You learn one single tactic about anchoring your salary requirements. Your annual review comes up, you use that phrase, and you negotiate a $5,000 raise. Your $20 investment just returned $5,000 in year one. That's a 25,000% return on investment. There is no stock, crypto, or real estate deal on earth that can beat the ROI of upgrading your own brain. Yet we cringe at the price of information. We try to figure it out ourselves for free on YouTube, wasting hundreds of hours sifting through bad advice just to save a few $100s. The reverse 10% rule says, if a book, a course, or a mentor can save you months of trial and error, buy it immediately. The speed of implementation is the new currency. Now, here's where it gets really interesting and a little controversial. We need to talk about health as an asset class. Most people treat their body like a rental car, put in the cheapest fuel possible and hope it doesn't break down until you turn it in. We buy cheap processed food to save money on the grocery bill. We sleep on a mediocre mattress because a good one costs too much. Here's the invisible cost you aren't calculating: brain fog. If you save $5 a day eating junk but your energy crashes at 2 p.m. every day, you're losing 25% of your productive capacity. Over a 40-year career operating at 75% capacity because you're trying to save money on food and sleep is a multi-million-dollar mistake. I want you to imagine your brain is a high-performance computer. Would you try to run complex software on it while restricting the power supply? No. You would want that machine running at peak performance. Buying high-quality food, a gym membership, or a mattress that actually lets you sleep is not a luxury. It is maintenance costs for your money-making machine. So why don't we do this? Why is it so hard to spend money to make money? It comes down to what psychologists call loss aversion. We feel the pain of losing $50 right now much more intensely than we feel the pleasure of gaining $500 in the nebulous future. When you pay for a cleaner or a course, the money leaves your account instantly. The benefit feels distant. To be rich, you have to override this biological programming. You have to stop asking, how much does this cost? And start asking, how much does it cost me not to have this? If you don't buy the course, what is the cost of staying stuck in your current job for another 2 years? If you don't pay for the time-saving service, what is the cost of burning out and quitting? Here's your actionable step for today. I want you to look at your bank statement, find the dumb expenses that bring you zero value, subscription boxes you don't use, fees you forgot about, and cut those ruthlessly. But then I want you to pick one area where you've been cheaping out. Maybe it's the desk chair that gives you back pain. Maybe it's the broken laptop that slows you down 10 minutes every day. Maybe it's hiring someone to do your taxes so you don't spend a week stressed out in April. Take the money you saved from the dumb stuff and redirect it there. Spend more on the things that buy you time, energy, or knowledge. The goal isn't to be the richest person in the graveyard because you never spent a dime. The goal is to build a life where your money works for you, not where you are a slave to saving pennies. Stop tripping over dollars to pick up dimes.